in my opinion, it's the best example. What may trick you a bit here, and it is coming from that MEB platform, and I heard some complaints online that the controller basically is hidden away from the steering wheel by the steering wheel, which it is. Alright, so let me tell you a bit about the real world driving range of this car here in Malta. Now, today we've got the Cupra Born, the all-electric hot hatch from Cupra, their first fully electric model, and I'll be taking it for a ride today, telling you about the interior, exterior design, the different driving modes, the regen here out in the real world, and that all important efficiency. I've reset my trip computer so we will get an accurate readout for the driving efficiency here in Malta, and that is going to affect your real world driving range. And for our international viewers, it may come as a surprise, especially if you're from the UK or a colder country, but here in Malta we generally meet or exceed WLTP because of our ideal conditions for electric vehicles. But enough blah blah blah, we're going to put that to the test in today's video. I'm Luke, let's get started. I'm excited. It's the Cupra Born. Let's start by discussing the design of this vehicle. I mean, the outside, I think Cupra here check all the right boxes. This is, as we said in my tech review, right? If you haven't seen that, linked below. A Volkswagen ID3 which has essentially been given some serious Spanish styling, and I don't know what it is. I think it's a combination of a number of things, right? But there's something about the paintwork, the finesse, the bronze accents, which just gives this car quite a stance on the road. And I think when you see it, you definitely turn your head to give it a second look. So in terms of design, for a hot hatch in particular, I am a big fan. I think they've done a fantastic job with this vehicle while sticking to those proportions which were defined from that MEB platform after all. So very great job, I think, on the exterior styling choices. Interior, to be honest, it continues going there. I think the design of the interior is once again a great job. The choice of materials here is good. In terms of the steering wheel, very comfortable size. What may trick you a bit here, and it is coming from that MEB platform, is you imagine in a hot hatch, in a sporty performance hot hatch, that you are going to be a bit lower to the road. Not the case here. So the battery pack in that MEB platform that this car is built on is a bit high in terms of its dimension compared to some of the competition, and to that regard you do not sit as low as you might have hoped. So you do have this high up driving position, which is okay, but I mean, for this car I would have preferred to be a bit lower down in the seat. I'm just gonna park here. I'm gonna be able to go through a bit the interior a bit more in detail for you. We're gonna talk about the different cabinets available so you have a better understanding of what we have available here to us. But in terms of the screens, I can tell you that from now we've got two screens, a 12-inch screen and a smaller display over here. They're both very crisp, they're both very sharp. I think the graphics on this smaller screen here are done very well. You get a nice visual representation of everything. It's not overly complicated that when you glance at it you're just lost, which in some cars that I've tried that does tend to happen, right? But so I think all the important information is available to us. The center screen, I mean it's responsive, it's bright, it's good. The technical aspect is good, but the software, I'll be honest, it's not bad, but it does take some time to getting used to. When I try out these cars, I get in and I fiddle around with the screen and I try to see how long it takes me to understand how it works. And I'm sure you will get used to it, but I don't think this is the most intuitive design we have going here. Having said that though, this car does have wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and to be honest, once you have those, from my experience, that is all you're going to be using, because you're going to use the maps, Spotify and all that good stuff from Apple CarPlay or Android Auto directly, and to that regard it works and looks absolutely great on this screen. So I highly recommend that if you've never experienced Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, that you do try it out, because I think it's a way better experience for the center console over here. So as I said, there are two screens. We've got the bigger screen and the smaller screen. The smaller screen, is tied to the steering column, which means when you adjust it, that screen is going to move with the steering. It's not always the case, what ends up happening is sometimes you move the steering and the steering obstructs your screen in front of you, which doesn't happen in this car, right? Quite decent adjustment as well from what I'm feeling. And so that's a very nice feature. We have our gear selector found up here. It is obstructed from the steering wheel, but basically once you get used to it, I think after you've driven the car for a while, it's going to be second nature. Just reach your hand out from the steering wheel and adjust it. So it's actually a very comfortable thing. So you have your driving and B mode engaged from there, or your neutral or reverse engaged from there. In terms of the interior, as I said already, I believe a very high level of materials here being used. In the center we have this very nice storage compartment, which is hiding the cup holders. There are two here, and I like that you can like sort of hide them away if you don't need them. It keeps the car nice and neat. So, and the quality of this roll up compartment essentially is pretty good, actually. It's very well made. I have felt some in some cars where you just pull it up and it's a bit you're like, this will break very soon. So that's very nice. A good amount of storage, fantastic storage down here, so very deep compartment, right? And at the top of it, I'm just noticing, hanging on by a little lip actually, is the wireless phone charger, and that's sort of sitting over there. Seats are very comfortable, both electric front seats in the case of the trim level that I am trying out today. And they have this very nice, I'd say, diamond design, and you find it everywhere, right? From the accent here on the dashboard to the door to outside the car to the seats, and it just gives the car this very nice look and feel. What else? The sunroof is actually, what I liked about the sunroof is that from the outside of the car, you look at the ceiling, you would never know there is a sunroof there. The tint is done perfectly to match the blue color of this car, and you'd never know it's there, right? You look from the outside, you don't see it, but from the inside, it's obviously a very, very large sunroof with an electric open and closing shade. It does take its merry time to close and open. It is a big sunroof, to be fair, but I like that it's there, you know, because if there's too much sun coming through the top here, you can just shut it. But for the time being, I'm going to reopen it as so. So let me tell you a bit about the safety features in this vehicle. So the car has a front-facing radar and front-facing camera. The camera hidden away in the windshield, the radar just under the number plate. Now those are looking forward, and they are detecting what is happening in front of you. So if another car suddenly brakes or crosses your path, if a cyclist or a pedestrian crosses your path, and the car, based on what you as the driver do not react fast enough, it will first give you a warning, and then it will perform an automatic emergency braking where the car will fully stop. Now, this is part of a suite of features which in 2022, when this car was crash tested by NCAP, gave it its full 5-star rating. So of course it's got all the bells and whistles you'd expect, like crumple zones and airbags, but these days the accidents you can prevent are the ones that the automakers are working on, and it's all about the tech here, right? So this suite of features definitely makes a huge difference. So I'm in a typical Maltese town road light, right? Very narrow, very small, with very low speeds here, and basically it's the type of road that you think is one way and then all of a sudden you figure out there's two ways. No, but jokes apart, I want to show you about the regen. So I've activated it by hitting the controller over here, and I heard some complaints online that the controller basically is hidden away from the steering wheel by the steering wheel, which it is. But let me tell you, that's only something you're going to feel in the very beginning while driving this car. Then you're just going to reach out your hand and with second nature either flip it forward or flip it back, depending on which gear, basically going forward, reverse, or the regen you want to engage. So I don't think that is an issue at all for a long-term user of this car. Now the regen, the B mode is the only one we have available, right? But it is probably the best example of regen in an electric car in terms of the B mode. So they have done, in my opinion, a fantastic job of dialing in the regen strength, and more than the strength, it's how that strength is applied. So I'm approaching a stop sign, right? I've pulled off the brake, I've pulled off the gas, and basically it does give you enough resistance. It's not one pedal, so it will not stop, but it does give you enough resistance to make that decision of whether I need to completely stop or go, say, at a roundabout, etc. And the curve in which the strength comes in, the longer you coast, the more strong it is. So speed bump here, perfect example for why you would want to use the regen. So I didn't have to tap on the brakes for the speed bump. So this is, I think, done extremely well from the from Cupra and the MEB platform, essentially, that's controlling this over here. So I do like the B mode over here. We do not have the paddle shifters. We will be getting paddle shifters in the newer Cupra Veloz or Speedy model, right? They're adding them on. Although I do hope, because I have tried paddle shifters on other cars on this MEB platform, and they're a bit rubbish, to be honest. They don't really do much, and everyone I speak to says I used them once and I've never used them again. That's because they're not great. Basically, the paddle shifters engage the regen only momentarily, and then they turn it off, which I don't like at all. And clearly people who I've spoken to don't like it either. So again, this car doesn't have the pedals. They are coming to the VZ, so I hope they tune their software so the regen is actually a functional thing and not just there for show, basically just to add pedals to a faster version of this car. All right, let me tell you a bit about the driving modes, otherwise known in this car as the driving profiles. Now in the variant I'm in, there are 4 different profiles available: the range, comfort, performance, and individual. Individual basically lets you set the settings as you wish in terms of the steering feel, the engine, etc. So that's going to give you a number of different control options. Now in terms of the standard mode, that's the comfort mode, that's what I've had it in most of the time, and I can tell you the throttle response and acceleration in that mode is plenty. But if you want to test out the acceleration of the car a bit better, you can change to the performance mode, which also improves the steering's reactivity basically, and the I mean, it definitely gives you quite a bit of a punch when you press on the accelerator. So the throttle response, of course, being an electric car, is instant. The split second you press on the gas, right, the car just literally flies, and it does it in a I'd say a very nice way, where it's not overly aggressive, right? So I have been in some EVs which are just a bit stupidly fast, right? This isn't one of them, but the acceleration feel is definitely something that will wake you up during the morning commute. If you're after a more relaxed ride, then comfort or range is what you should be driving the car in. And what's nice as well, and I do sort of link this with the driving profile a bit, the sound the car makes. So there is a faint noise of a motor sound, let's call it a motor, not an engine, a motor sound, which does increase as you accelerate, and they're doing it very subtly and very nicely. So you do get a bit of reaction from the car in terms of the sound. It's obviously all fake, right? This is all speaker noise, but I don't mind it, especially for a performance-oriented car. They haven't overdone it here, so it's not like it's like going overboard as they've done in, say, the Abarth, where it's literally like an internal combustion car, right? This sticks to what this car is, which is an electric car, but adds that subtlety of sound which you do enjoy while you're driving, particularly when you tap on the accelerator, right? So I think for a electric hatchback, in terms of performance, this checks all the boxes. And we're not even in the upcoming VZ Veloz version. So another thing I forgot to mention, I mean, because frankly I've gotten used to it at this point, having driven so many electric cars, right, is the second you step inside one of these cars which are built on this full electric MEB platform, the thing that becomes very apparent is the interior room is just huge, right? Because they don't need a center tunnel at the back. It's a flat floor at the back, okay? And the room you have in the front and even in the back, the leg room's pretty good back there. Basically, it's because this car is built on fully ground up electric architecture, and it just feels so roomy in here. You always feel, I tend to see that you get into an electric car that's built ground up electric, and it just feels a lot bigger than it actually is. So very nice, of course, to see that, but you do have to experience it. You have to go and sit in the car and remember the dimensions, right? Because again, you start to forget the dimensions of it. This is a small hatchback after all. All right, so let me tell you a bit about the real world driving range of this car here in Malta. Now, what I do in these tests is I drive the cars a while, generally anywhere between 40 and 50 kilometers in the Maltese conditions. And by Maltese conditions, I mean I take them onto the bypasses, which are the fastest roads we have, right? 80 km/h top speeds. I take them to the narrow Maltese town roads where you're barely moving, and I take them to our favorite place, which is stuck in traffic, which tends to happen a lot on this island. To be fair, today on a Saturday I didn't get that much traffic, and I have the data here. So I reset the trip computer before the start of my trip, and the efficiency of my 47 kilometer journey, which I must highlight, is double what the average driver would do in a day in Malta. So the average driver is going to drive less than 20 kilometers a day. So I've driven nearly double that today for this test. Average speed is 36 kilometers per hour, which is also higher than what you would expect in Malta. So actually lesser speed generally is also going to mean better efficiency. Now what I have here, the kilowatt rating per hour is essentially 13.4 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. So the car used 13.4 units of electricity to drive 100 kilometers. Now, we know the battery size in this car. So I am driving the variant with the smaller battery, which is plenty for Malta. So if I remind you, I mentioned it in my tech review. I have to review my notes here because I forget all the numbers here. So this is a 60 kilowatt hour battery, of which 58 kilowatt hours are usable. So that's the number we need to consider, the 58. So if we take that 58 kilowatt hours and divide it by the real world efficiency I got here after my nearly 50 kilometers of driving, I get 4.32. I multiply that up by 100 and I get a real world driving range based on today's real world tests right here in Malta of 432 kilometers, which is around 5 kilometers more than the car's official WLTP rating. So essentially I exceed the car's stated range here. I need to highlight though two important factors. One, I was running the car as you would with the air conditioning on. For the most part, I actually had it on quite cold, on low fan to be fair, but quite cold on like 17 degrees. And then I said, let me put it up to 21 because I'm being a bit overkill, particularly when I noticed that the outside temperature was actually 18 degrees. That's another important factor, right? The temperature outside. So we're close to that ideal battery temperature of 25 degrees, which is why I'm able to get this efficiency with this car here in Malta. So those are two things. I ran the car in comfort mode for the most part, but I did put it into the performance sports mode as well. So I was actually seeing readouts of around 12.2 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers when I was running it just in comfort, and then I put it into performance and I sort of ruined my statistics a bit. So if you're running it in comfort or even more in the eco mode here, in the most efficient driving mode, the range mode, and you're going to get even more range than what we saw here. So this is excellent stuff. Having said that though, this car is a test car that's been driven for 444 kilometers. And the statistics also show us the long term based on this range, right? And there the efficiency is showing 19.5 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. So what I'd like you to take from this is the efficiency very much depends on your driving style as well. So if this car has been kept more, say, in the performance mode and it's been accelerated and decelerated fast, that's why we're saying that very high 19.5, which is quite high actually, and particularly for a car of this size. So that's what the car is showing over 4,000 kilometers. But as you saw my test, which I do with all the cars I test on the channel, which 50 kilometers, right? That is the reading we got. So based on that, I've exceeded the WLTP rating of the Cupra Born here in Malta. I mean, there is something about this car which just gives you a genuine smile. Whether it's the driving experience, the little subtle noises it makes when you accelerate, or just the fact that if you see it out in the road, you definitely turn around, turn your head to give it a second glance, because it does have that aggressive, sporty feeling to it, which I feel most electric cars unfortunately lack. But not the Cupra Born. What's more, built on all electric architecture, right? So we get all the benefits of that. And here you go, in Malta, WLTP is exceeded essentially. Guys, if you've enjoyed today's video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. If you're interested in the tech of the vehicle, make sure you go check out my full tech review, which I am linking below. But as always, I hope me and the Cupra Born have convinced you that the future is electric.